Hello, friends! Welcome to R2-BD, the Star Wars show where, I don't know, we talk about Star Wars, I suppose. My name's Joey.
I'm Jacob.
And we're talking Star Wars. Surprise, surprise.
Wait. We're talking Star Wars?
We're talking Star Wars, if you can believe it. It's not a Friday once again.
It's not a Friday.
It's not a Friday once again. It's a Monday we're recording this on. But,
yes.
Today we're talking The Last Command. We're finishing the Thrawn trilogy at long last.
At long last.
Which we started way back in our first episode of R2-BD.
Which
is really funny.
Yeah,
actually. The Thrawn trilogy has seen us through every phase of this show, the start of it, the remote recording era, and now this new format we're trying out, which we just kicked off last episode.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in a way, to really usher us into this new era of R2-BD, we're finishing the Thrawn trilogy. I think that's really cool.
That is really neat, actually.
Yeah.
Completely unintentional.
Yeah, it just kind of happened that way. But, we're talking The Last Command. Very excited about this. Again, once again with the Thrawn trilogy, I had read it when I was in middle school, I think. And so this is the first time I've ever reread all three books. And having gone through it again, it's a fun time. It's great. It is a first off, obviously, there's a reason they're so popular. I would say what is more fascinating about going back through them is finding things that influence Star Wars today.
I'd say I noticed through these books, like all three, I have found a lot of things that I'm like, oh, this is just Star Wars still. Like certain terms, certain like things ways are done.
Mm-hmm.
This is still just Star Wars.
Yeah,
and then there's times when Zahn asked to guess at stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That is not Star Wars. That's namely Clone Wars era references.
Yeah, I mean, but beyond like the more the reference-y side of these books, I think what is more fascinating to me is Star Wars kind of finding its identity, because up until this point there was the original trilogy. There's the holiday special, of course.
Of course.
You have the cartoons, Droids and Ewoks,
right?
And I would say because of that, there was no real like general consensus of what Star Wars was. There's this idea of the original trilogy happening. George Lucas saying, the next thing I want to do with Star Wars is make these cartoons. They are clearly not what we think of as Star Wars today.
No.
And so we have these books, which is someone other than George Lucas putting a stamp on what Star Wars is and what fans see Star Wars as, which is very clearly what Star Wars would become.
Sure. Oh,
now, by no means am I saying that George Lucas was ever at all influenced by anything in these fucking books. George Lucas famously despised the expanded Star Wars universe.
I remember we talked about this either on R2-BD or privately, just about these books in general.
Yeah, George did not give a fuck about the Star Wars books. Any expanded universe shit, he was like, no, that does not matter. What matters is what I make.
George Lucas was very much under the like ethos, if you will, of like, as far as I'm concerned, everything I make is canon.
Yeah.
Everything else doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like for the movies.
Yeah. And so you get these books that... And again, maybe this could have also contributed to the certain negative backlash that the prequels received, because by that point, the fans had already decided what they wanted Star Wars to be, and it was clearly something like this. It was clearly what the novels were doing up until that point. And so when you get around to Star Wars that is not George Lucas, i.e. the late Lucasfilm era, like Clone Wars, or the early Disney era with Rebels and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Hell, I mean, things from this book are literally used as major plot points in Rebels.
Yes, and it's actually really fascinating in a retrospect kind of way.
Yeah. It's cool. It's really, really cool. It's fascinating to see. And as such, I think that's a great way to transition us into actually talking about Star Wars The Last Command. This is a spoiler discussion. I guess let's jump into it. Okay. Where to begin? Drew Sabaoth is fascinating, I think.
Yes. Especially because he's got more to do in this book. He's got more of a direct hand in the events.
I would dare say he's the primary antagonist of this book. I would say it's very much his story in the end.
Yeah, I would agree. By the end of this book, it is absolutely his story.
Mm-hmm. As big an impact as Grand Admiral Thrawn made as a character on Star Wars as a whole, he's not the major bad guy in the end here.
No, he gets outplayed by the people he thought he could trust the most.
Yeah, he if we're directly comparing it to the original trilogy, I mean, he's kind of our Tarkin in all of this by the end. Like, he's the guy that goes down with the ship, essentially. He's stuck there while the real climactic battle that we're kind of following is happening with our major characters. It's Luke and Jeruus and Mara, and sort of and building on that. Or I suppose a more apt can actually be more Return of the Jedi, and like Thrawn is more our guys in the sky protecting the Death Star from Lando. You know?
Yeah.
And what everybody loves to see is Luke fighting Palpatine and Vader, and
because it's a big Jedi Force battle thing.
It is the difference between a literal between like trying to think of how to word this, between between the literal climax of a story and the emotional climax of a story.
Mm-hmm.
And often in Star Wars, they all happen at the same time.
Right, because they're acting as sort of also, because the emotional climax is also usually an actual climax as well.
Yeah, and this always happens through various, because we're following various sets of characters throughout those films. Every single Skywalker saga film ends with multiple major battles happening at once as we're flipping back and forth between different sets of characters dealing with different sets of problems. And
sometimes it's more a movie issue of, are these battles easy to follow? Not always.
Yeah, and in true Star Wars fashion, The Last Command's emotional climax is a lightsaber battle.
Oh, of course.
And it's great. It's great. But yeah, Drew Sabayoth is fascinating. Odd influences to current Star Wars. The end of the, I guess, original sequel trilogy, if you will, is a giant-ass cloning plot. It's about a big bad guy with a dark Jedi with evil Force lightning and all that.
But I remember, like, my brain had to flip on Dark Jedi again. It's like, all right, Sith, not a thing yet.
But yeah, Dark Jedi, using Force lightning and using cloning technology to try to defeat our heroes, and it deals with a bad guy turned good guy in the end, being the savior of the day.
Oh, absolutely.
That's the end of Rise of Skywalker, isn't it?
More or less.
That is the end of Rise of Skywalker.
Like in terms of structure, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when you break it down to just the pieces that make up those climaxes. Let's get it on the record. We don't love the Rise of Skywalker. But we don't hate it.
No,
it's a fine film.
We're not the hate train.
But no, I find the connections fascinating. I really, really do. Mm-hmm. Drew Sabayoth wants a special clone to be made.
As he tells Pelion, and he's like, "I want this," and Pelion's like, "I'm going to tell Thrawn immediately."
Drew Sabayoth wants a lot in this. He wants a special clone. He already has a special clone. He wants a different special clone. In addition to the clone that he already has.
Yeah, that's
He
true.
wants Leia's twins. He wants
Leia.
He wants Leia.
And Luke.
He wants Luke. He wants Mara. But he wants a lot.
And the Empire. And he just wants the Empire.
He's a bit much to handle. It's very reasonable to see why literally everyone turns on him in the end.
Right, I know.
Yeah, he's a lot to handle. Once again, I think we talked about this. So actually, no. We talked about this in our Dark Force Rising, not in our Heir to the Empire thing, right? Or did we?
You'll have to tell me what we
when
talked
did
about.
Bad Batch Season 3 come out?
Oh.
It had to be... It was last year, wasn't it?
It was last year, yeah. We talked about...
2024 was so long.
Yeah. We talked about the Mount Tantus connection. I'm assuming that's what you're going after.
Yeah, exactly. I love... I don't know, I just love having just such a clear visual for what that looks like now. Also, I know there are comic adaptations of these books that are very famous and are literally the visual representation of these stories that I do mean to check out someday.
Yes.
I know they collected it recently, and all three in like one big...
Yeah, I know. We talked about this. That's something I also want to pick up, just because.
Yeah. Write in, and we'll cover it on this show. I don't know. We might.
Maybe. But no, it was definitely between air. Like, we talked about this, like, it was on our Dark Force Rising. Mm-hmm. For Dark Force Rising, because we had not made that connection with Heir to the Empire.
Yeah. So you have Mount Tantus here, where Drew Sabayoth is making all of his plans and his evil machinations and his cloning shit. And also on visual representations, something that was really cool for me, unfortunately not cool for you, but because I had known this book already, something that was really cool for me.
Yes,
they had announced. I think it's out already. They have a Black Series set, a box set of action figures from The Last Command, and it's Luke, Mara, Drew Sabayoth, and I said to you, I was like, there's a character in this book that I can't spoil for you. That comes in this box set.
Yeah.
And I can't show you it because of that.
And I was like, well over halfway. I was like, so when does this character come in?
Oh, at the very fucking
you had basically said it was like in like the last. I was like, so there's a character, and I was like, this might even be a direct quote because I probably said along this exact same lines.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, so structurally, there is a new character right at the end.
Yeah,
and you were like, yeah,
yep, absolutely. It is so fascinating. Back on the Rise of Skywalker thing. I guess we should just talk about it now, shouldn't we? Because it's a major part of this discussion here, I think.
Yeah, we can talk about this now.
So, back on the Rise of Skywalker thing, and I guess the sequel trilogy in general, and things that weird fanboys online like to complain about.
Mm-hmm.
Luuuuuuuke is a stupid fucking idea.
Luuuuuuuuke is a dumb idea.
It's a very stupid idea.
However, it's a fun idea.
It's a very fun idea, and that is, I think, why it works. It is so weird and strange and so 90s Star Wars.
But I also remember saying to you, as I listened to it, because I mostly did the audiobook for this, that it is a pretty dumb idea. However, it is the ultimate culmination of this trilogy in terms of like the Force side of things.
Yeah, oh yeah, totally.
Because it's the hyped up cloning technology. It's Drew Sabath having his final story connection go down.
Yeah.
And it also uses Luke's severed hand.
I was just going to say, it is also fucking ridiculous. Luke's severed hand was used to create a clone of himself, wielding the lightsaber that he lost on Bespin. Who retrieved this? Who got this? How was this made? I'm sure there are actual old Legends answers to this.
Oh, I guarantee there are.
But, wow, what a pull. What a pull Timothy's on.
Yeah.
Crazy. Speaking on silly things in this book, I just wanted to say my first note of this is one of the early pages of the novel talks about an Imperial hit and fade.
Oh, yes, we talked about hit and fade is such a fun idea.
It's a funny, I like Star Wars equivalents to real world terms like that.
I can't recall ever hearing hit and fade in anything canon.
I don't think so. No way. They should bring it back.
They should.
That is what current Star Wars is missing. We talk of a hit and fade.
Here's the thing. When you hear hit and fade in Star Wars, it's actually really easy to picture what on earth that means.
Yeah.
Because it's a hit and run, but in Star Wars it's a hit and fade, like the Imperials came, attacked, and got out of there.
Yeah, totally. Oh man, just weird as hell. Sorry, back on Sabaoth. I just wanted to bring that up. Back on Sabaoth. He's not only does he like monologue, but he's very paranoid throughout a lot of this book.
I mean, in fairness, he kind of has the right to be.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, but also there's literally a point in the novel where he thinks that Thrawn is going to destroy Coruscant.
That's fair.
You won't take my children away from me. You cannot destroy Coruscant. It's like he's not gonna fucking destroy it. What are you talking
I can
about?
picture Thrawn looking at him like, are you crazy? I mean, I know you're crazy, but are you crazy?
Yeah, exactly. We also spent some time on a planet called Wayland in this, which is where sort of our final climax.
That's like the last third of the book for our emotional climax. Exactly.
Yeah. Which is interesting. This idea that once again, before Palpatine died, he was experimenting on cloning shit, and he would take Mara Jade there. And like that's where he's hiding all his cloning shit. This is something that Palpatine prepared for.
Yeah, it's really not that complicated an idea here, folks.
Yeah. This is really just going to turn into we defend the Rise of Skywalker because the Last Command is equally dumb. And dumb things belong in Star Wars. Star Wars is dumb, okay?
It doesn't always have to be really well written.
That's not what I'm saying.
Okay, you know what? That's fair. That's a bad take there.
Yeah, it is ridiculous space fantasy.
Space fantasy. That's better.
It is ridiculous space fantasy. That is not to excuse poorly thought out Star Wars.
No.
Simply to say that because an idea sounds ridiculous, because George Lucas' dialogue sounds ridiculous, doesn't mean it doesn't belong in there. I mean, shit. How many interview clips do we have of Mark Hamill bitching about that one audition line that he still has memorized? You've seen it, right?
Yes, I have.
It's great. Because Star Wars has always been ridiculous.
Yeah. Like pretty much from the start, from the first film, it's a pretty ridiculous idea.
Yeah.
Like on paper, their execution is fine, like the original Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
But like it can't tell me the prequels aren't ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah, totally. I don't know. That's just... just wanted to bring that up. I guess on our sort of more emotional climax, let's talk about Luke and Mara. Now, obviously, it's kind of hard to talk about Luke and Mara Jade without knowing where their relationship eventually goes in Star Wars Legends, but...
It is so infamous, I know the end conclusion.
Yeah, it doesn't make it any less interesting to talk about, though, especially in this book, because this is where we actually see a legitimate friendship grow between the two of them.
Oh, yeah.
And I just find that really interesting. They're working together throughout all of this book to like find cloning facilities, to find Wayland. And though there is this larger team that goes to Wayland in the end, I literally have my notes here. Team Wayland is Luke, Han, Lando, Chewie, Mara, R2, and 3PO. It's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people.
And a heavy focus on our Force users.
Yeah.
Because yeah, it's through the journey on Wayland, it is Luke teaching Mara as well. He's helping her train in the Force.
Yeah. Because they're traveling through the Wayland jungle for like a week or so.
Oh yeah.
So Luke legit just goes like, "We have the time.
Yeah.
Let's train."
Yeah, totally. We also get just some really great moments throughout all of this, like Luke telling Mara like how Palpatine died, and like at this point I think it's worth noting where the name of this novel gets its name. That's a weird way of wording that. This novel gets its name from what is the last command that Palpatine sent to Mara, which is "You will kill Luke Skywalker."
A line repeated very often.
Yes. And it's something that like literally haunts her. There are like nightmares she has about this dream, and like it creates this, I think, larger theme in the book of trauma, I would say, of Mara learning how to like reconcile with her past and how to sort of move past that. And also, I think throughout the entire trilogy, I think we have, mostly in Last Command, but throughout the entire trilogy of like learning how to deal with the trauma of the original trilogy. Leia moving past, not moving past, but just learning how to like come to terms with knowing what she knows about her father, and same with Luke and the death of Darth Vader. How do we move on? How do we actually learn to become better? And that is, I think, a lot of Mara's journey in this, because she says multiple times in this, she says to like Leia and Han, she's like, "Hey, I still intend to kill Luke. It's gonna happen.
Like I'm working with you temporarily because I don't want another Clone Wars." Yeah,
exactly. And it through that, like that is how we explore Luke and Mara's relationship. That is how she becomes a friend to him. Someone that legitimately cares and saves his life in the end.
Mm-hmm.
And also, again, because Star Wars is stupid and dumb and ridiculous, and I love it, we still find a way for her to fulfill the last command. Because through our clone of Luke, she kills Luke. She kills Luke.
She kills Luke Skywalker.
And thus fulfills the last command. My note here literally says Mara kills Luke, and in parentheses I have prophecy talk. Ooh, like ooh with a bunch of O's and all that. Because it's essentially a prophecy. That's what we're fulfilling here. Mara will kill Luke Skywalker someday is essentially our prophecy that we're trying to fulfill.
And that's like and at this point in her character arc, I don't think she can kill Luke. They have done too much through the last 2 books for that to almost be impossible. And I think Timothy Zahn does smartly lay this out, when Mara's in jail for not letting Imperials into Coruscant, and to attack Leia and her newborn babies.
Yeah,
like Leia goes to meet Mara in her jail cell, and she's like, "Do you actually want to kill Luke? You keep saying it."
Yeah, and it is just this idea that through it all, like, Mara still has to... She is forcing herself to abide by that last command.
Right. Mostly because I don't think she, even though she doesn't probably want... Even though the implications heavily imply she doesn't actually want to do that, she can't not hear that command.
Yeah. Yeah, it legitimately haunts her. That's why we have these nightmares, these dreams here, constantly torturing her. It's cool. It's just a great part of the book. It's probably the strongest aspect of the book, I think, is Mara's character arc.
Oh, sure.
Which again, giant fan favorite character.
I can
for a reason.
For a reason.
Yeah. It's great. It's great. Speaking of, I guess not so much fan favorite characters, but original characters to this trilogy and ones that have a great reputation because of these books, let's talk about Talon Karrde.
Talon Karrde is one of my favorite characters from this trilogy.
Talon Karrde is great. I find, interesting. Fun personality. I find the character a little listless throughout the trilogy. Beyond, like, Heir to the Empire. I think Dark Force Rising and Last Command, Zana's not entirely sure what to do with him.
I think by Last Command he settled on a direction he's gonna take Karrde.
Yeah.
I think I would agree. In Dark Force Rising he's a bit directionless.
Yeah.
But I think I can't decide if that's either just he doesn't know how to write him, or if that is purposefully the character not knowing what they want to do.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, because essentially Karrde's whole arc in this is he's like, I don't know what to do now. I'm going to make a smugglers alliance. I'm going to make an alliance of smugglers. We're going to lose a bunch of money. The alliance is going to fall apart. Then we're going to join the New Republic. Also, we can have our big space battle at the end.
And then also still at the end keep that smugglers alliance kind of.
Yeah.
Which like I get, like I understand the whole point through this book. Like in Heir to the Empire, it's very much he isn't on any side. He's a smuggler.
Yeah.
In Dark Force Rising, it's more out of necessity, kind of the same reason Mara Jade does what she does. Like, I don't want clones. I don't want the Empire to be any bigger than necessarily has to be.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, because at that point, it's more of a business problem for Karrde if the Empire gets all that bigger.
Yeah, yeah.
So he's kind of between two areas. In this one, he's very firmly on the side of the New Republic. Yeah. Even though he keeps telling his associates, no, guys, I'm not actually with the New Republic.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think I'm just conflicted on that. I think, because essentially all it is for me, like, all I'm seeing it as is just so we can have our big space battle at the end, and the Smugglers Alliance can be there as part of it. And in a book that none of these books have really excelled at space battles.
No, that they absolutely
cannot
haven't.
capture the joy of watching a big Star Wars space battle in a book. I just don't think that's possible.
I think through time, and I literally mean time, like the canon book, the current canon books are better at it.
Even then, the only really well described battle I could think of in space is like the end of Light of the Jedi. Personally,
Light of the Jedi is the only one. It's like the best example I could think of off the top of my head too.
Yeah, and again, that may just come down to authors. You know, like maybe just Timothy Zahn is the best at it, and I don't know. I've never particularly taken.
Also, remember, this is the first real crack at it.
Yeah, but also, you know, 3 straight films of novelizations from Star Wars, like, it's, I don't know. I just think it's a very hard thing to accomplish. I'm not going to blame it on it for not being able to accomplish it, but when one of your character's major arcs relies on culminating in a big space battle, and when the death of your main villain of this trilogy, secondary main villain, one of your main villains of this trilogy relies on the results of this space battle, I'm a little let down.
Which I'd argue Thrawn doesn't even really lose the space battle. Yeah, he's losing it, sure, but it's not unrecoverable.
Yeah,
from like if Thrawn wasn't stabbed in the heart.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I overall, just to say, I was let down by the Battle of Bilberigi.
Oh, sure, yeah, but I remember that was an issue that we had with
the last 2 as well. There are space battles in both of those. And neither of them are interesting.
I mean, I'd like to point out in Heir to the Empire, because remember I read the Anniversary Edition, which had like author's notes. That last big space battle was literally inserted because it needed to end on a space battle.
Yeah, and it's like that's not, and I think that goes back to the conversation of like, to fans. Timothy Zahn is a fan, I think, first and foremost, what feels like Star Wars. And to them, what feels like Star Wars is ending your movie on a big space battle. And so that's what they felt like they had to do. And that's what you have here as well. And it is literally the ending of Return of the Jedi. It's your big space battle played alongside your emotional lightsaber fight. That's it. That's all it is. It's not bad. But again, it is just the point of like, it is piloting Star Wars into what many fans thought would be the only Star Wars you would get from this point, which is books. And the idea of the prequels would not be announced, I think, for another couple years yet.
Yeah, so like Star Wars...
Lucas announced he was working on the prequels in 94, I believe.
Okay.
And I don't know...
like the publication year of Last Command.
Yeah, I'm gonna look it up right now. Vam.
No, I mean, I would just say that like
92.
92.
Wait, no, hang on. 93.
So there's a year gap in terms of like this coming out and the prequels being announced.
Yes. Now keep in mind, these books have been releasing, I think, one a year. I think they started in 91 and went to 93. So these books as a whole were piloting what Star Wars was going to be.
Right. Which it is not unfair to assume that what would have mostly been like a older teen, younger adult audience to be like, this is Star Wars. It's books.
Yeah. What is Star Wars? Because, again, if you just strictly went by what Lucasfilm was working on from the start of Star Wars up until the prequels are announced, Star Wars is kind of directionless. George Lucas doesn't quite know... It is a continual process of Lucas not quite knowing what he wants to do with the franchise because he never intended it to be a franchise.
No, it was always a one film.
Well, it was one film, and even then, it was... Lucas didn't even want to have that much involvement in the other two films. He's not a director. He's a story buy. He didn't write the script for Empire or Jedi.
No,
he didn't want it. He wanted to be an auteur filmmaker and to go off and make his American graffitis of the world. You know.
Instead, he made one of the most successful pop culture movies ever.
Yeah, this is a larger conversation actually that I think is really interesting in George Lucas's self-inserting. That I think it could be argued that Lucas kind of sees himself as Anakin in the prequels, in that he is this kid that's like really good at like this thing, and then he gets sort of like taken into this larger world, and like it has this role sort of thrust upon him, which I think could be really an interesting read of that.
That is an interesting read of that. Yeah,
but entirely beside the point.
Entirely. like if you are like someone who like if you were, like I said, an older teen, younger adult, you loved the original trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
What's Star Wars? It's not going to be these kids shows.
Yeah,
it's going to be these books that you have presumably really liked because it's Star Wars.
That really feel like the original trilogy because Zahn is trying to recreate that magic of people watching Star Wars for the first time. I mean,
sometimes Zahn is a bit heavy-handed in that regard.
I think most heavy-handed in Heir to the Empire. When he directly quotes the trilogy multiple times.
He does it. I think he did it more frequently in this book too than in Dark Force Rising.
Maybe I suppose. I don't know, but. Yeah, it's just an interesting conversation. I find it fascinating. Other things I find fascinating, actually, something I learned about Timothy Zahn. Do you know the reason why the Ysalamari exist?
No.
Because he kind of saw Luke Skywalker as a sort of Superman character. He's like, well, Luke Skywalker is so overpowered. How do you stop him? So the Ysalamari are kind of like a kryptonite.
Okay.
They're these little anti-force swirls, and and they're there to depower Luke because Zahn saw Luke Skywalker as too powerful.
He saw an issue of Luke being reasonably powerful in the Force, and was like, how do I solve this?
Yeah.
Anti-Force space. That's how I do it.
Yeah. As someone that's been reading a fair bit of Silver Age Justice League, that's why, like, Superman had so many random weaknesses. And I say not random. We think of them as so common these days as part of his character. But that's like, it's not just kryptonite. It's also magic. And we have the idea of the red suns. Other planets have red suns, so Superman can't use his powers there, you know? We have reasons why these characters don't have their powers so they can become ideally more interesting. When I think realistically... And I don't think this is a super big problem with Last Command, but I want to bring this up. These characters aren't interesting because of their powers. They're interesting because they're good people.
Oh, sure.
Like, Superman is not interesting because he's powerful. He's interesting because he's a good man stuck in a world of terrible people.
I would have phrased it as Superman is an interesting character because of how he uses his powers.
Yeah.
How does Superman... This is related to Luke, it's the same idea.
Well, yeah.
How does Superman use his powers to save people? Like, in what order of operations does Superman do that?
Yeah.
Luke Skywalker, kind of the same thing.
Yeah, totally.
How does Luke Skywalker, order of operations, handle a situation with his Force abilities and his non-Force abilities?
Yeah. And so, once again, it's the argument of, like, Luke isn't interesting because he's powerful. He's interesting because he's a good person.
But I'd also think it's interesting that Zahn also knows... This climax will be nearly not as interesting if the Ysalamari are not a thing again, because Sabayoth like explodes them.
Yeah, he's like, see, I have these little force squirrels, blah, blah, blah.
And he's like, let me show you something. He presses a button, and then Luke and everyone who has the Force can suddenly use the Force again.
Yeah,
and it's like the book never explains what he did.
Yeah.
He just
That's
somehow
true.
killed them all.
Yeah, yeah. It's fascinating, isn't it? I don't know. I find their existence in these books really interesting. I don't know. Again, it's the whole. You could test Luke in other ways. You know?
Yeah, I think there are absolutely other better ways to test Luke than going, just remove the Force.
Yeah, like the thesis of the character is the end of Return of the Jedi. It is that denial of the dark side. It is I am a Jedi like my father before me. It is him throwing away his lightsaber. It is him standing up for his father. That is how you test Luke. Luke is super powerful already in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah. Like, as far as, like, the prequels were concerned, he was about as strong as he was getting at that point.
Yeah. It is Luke's goodness that makes him interesting in that moment. And so I don't know. I just, it's odd. It's an odd choice, I think, throughout these books. And again, but also, realistically, because I only just recently learned this information, like, it's not something I was thinking about in Heir to the Empire or Dark Force Rising.
No.
So I wasn't like, what is Zahn saying about the Luke with the Ysalamari? And it's like, no, I wouldn't think any different of them if I didn't know that. So I don't know. I'm not quite sure how that if that is skewed my opinion. I don't think it makes me think less of Last Command. I think is all.
No, I don't think it changes my opinion of Last Command.
It affects my opinion of Timothy Zahn. I think actually, I think that's exactly what it is.
I think it's more of that. Just like hearing this information now, like it sounds like he wasn't confident he could write a challenging enough scenario without literally depowering the people around him.
Yeah.
Well, the characters he's writing, I suppose, is a better phrase.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah. Let's talk about Princess Leia.
Okay, yeah, we can talk about Leia Organa Solo.
Yeah. What a woman. She is the cause, I think, of the best scene in the entire book for me. I have three notes here on it, and it is all like in this big bracket that I have here. It's the best scene in the whole book. It is the birth scene.
The birth. Okay.
I think it is the finest piece of writing in all three of these books. Timothy Zahn nails this bizarre connection between Leia and her children that she's about to have that already exists within the Force, which is this sort of interesting, almost very religious idea of the Force, which is the way that George Lucas always looked at the Force.
George always saw it as far as we ever
saw it as religious until he made it scientific with the midichlorians, but then brought it back to the religion with the Jesus allegory with Anakin being Immaculate Conception. That's entirely beside the point, but no, it's not actually. That's a really interesting conversation. Once again, not relevant to this.
Yeah, that's a conversation we can have another time.
But we had this idea of Leia's children, Jason and Jaina, already existing within the Force, and Leia's connection to them already existing as she goes into labor. There is, once again, this idea that we still see today in Star Wars of the Force being maternal. The Force is, I mean, we've heard it from, I believe Kathleen Kennedy said it, like the Force is female, like that's, people have made fun of that, but I'm like, no, I think the Force has always been very feminine. I mean, the Force gave Shmi Skywalker Anakin. Like that is the idea. Like there's always been this, I think, maternal instinct in the Force. Aside from like maybe when it's being first developed by Lucas in the very early drafts of Star Wars.
Oh, sure.
You know, there's this maternal aspect to it that I think Zahn really plays into here, and I find it fascinating.
It shows just how strong that can be.
Yeah.
Like in this case, it's a bit literal that, children to mother, I suppose.
Yeah.
But it's still really well done.
Yeah.
Although I did say to you, after getting through that bit, I was like, man, could you imagine experiencing birth, but the birth you're giving?
Yeah. Fascinating stuff. I don't know. I find that really cool. Also, I love the bit when Mara tells her past, because I just find Leia's reaction to Mara's backstory like really interesting. Just a great scene. I just wanted to note that.
That is a really interesting. It was a really interesting scene.
Yeah.
I think Leia has a great role in this book, period.
Totally.
Especially when we get scenes where she is really balancing her life, and it actually really works for her. Yeah. Like after she's just given birth, not long ago. And then the Imperials attack, the Commando Squad attack.
We haven't even talked about the fantastic Thrawn attack on Coruscant sequence.
Yeah, I was gonna get there too.
That's our ship battle of the book. That I think that is our our big action set piece in the book that I think really works. But go on.
Honestly, we have the Commando attack, which is really fascinating and I think pretty well done.
Yeah.
It involves characters using knowledge they have, so like the knowledge only they can have, like Mara knowing the secret passageways.
Mm-hmm.
It involves Leia trusting just the people around her, even just Mara, who she suspects.
Yeah.
Like, giving her information.
Mm-hmm.
We have, like you said, like, Leia during the Thrawn attacking Coruscant.
Mm-hmm.
She reads the room. She knows what has to happen.
Yeah. I love the shields around Coruscant. It's just a cool idea.
That is a very cool idea.
Yeah. That was just one of my favorite sequences, was the Coruscant attack. That was fantastic. But honestly, no moment in this book feels more Carrie Fisher than when she is forcing Karr to take her to Wayland.
Yeah,
fucking fantastic moment. I really, really love the way that Zahn writes that. That's great. So Leia and Karr like also end up on Wayland towards the end, along with the already massive Team Wayland that is there, blowing up Mount Tantus.
Yeah, we didn't even mention that Nogri also followed Team Wayland.
Yes, and the Nogri are protecting Leia throughout the whole kidnap attempt and all that.
Yeah,
that's just cool. They're again, it's a book with a lot of stuff in it, obviously.
Pretty packed book. It never felt like it had a pacing problem.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say so. Yeah, Zahn has always been great at pacing, I would say, throughout all three of these.
Yeah, they're all paced pretty well. I thought about it, I was thinking about it more afterwards, so I was like, there's a lot happening in this book. Like, listen to all the stuff we just talked about.
Yeah.
Like, none of it felt like it wasn't paced well.
Yeah.
Which is impressive.
Yeah, totally.
It's a lot of balls in the air to juggle.
Yeah. A lot of balls indeed. But, let's see. I think I'll just run through the last couple of notes I have here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. We have Admiral Akbar getting cleared off screen. Because of course he is, resetting to the status quo. Niles Ferrier is a traitor, because of course he is. I wish he had a lot more to do in this book.
Yeah.
He was so good in Dark Force Rising, and Zahn clearly, another character that Zahn just didn't really know what to do with.
Well, because we have to reach a certain status quo again.
Yeah. Let's see. At one point in the Clone War, we refer to clone troopers, which are just referring to regular clones in the Clone Wars, but also they get called clone troopers. And I know Timothy Zahn knew nothing about that, but it's
again interesting.
Just really interesting. I love Winter being looking into Mara's past. She's really onto that bitch. It's great.
I think Winter had a phenomenal, interesting past in general. Like how covert she was. In the background of the original trilogy is actually really fascinating.
Yeah, she's badass. We get a great Lando and Mara team up, which is great, where we also learn that Lando knew that she was a dancer at Jabba's palace. Crazy.
Right?
Absolutely crazy. Let's see. Mon Mothma covers for Mara escaping her cell, which I think is badass, and I love Mon Mothma, and she deserves everything. We should cover Reign of the Empire. That just came out recently.
Oh.
And that would be very cool.
That would be a good idea.
That'd be very cool to cover.
That's a good idea indeed.
Mara learns, this is my exact note, Mara learns Vader was Luke's papa.
Because she does spend a lot of these books, this book anyway, going, what am I missing here?
Yeah, she doesn't get the connection there, which is cool. Let's get a great scene. Speaking on Luke's papa, we get a great scene between Luke and Kabarak, where in the same vein as Lady Vader, she refers to Luke as Son of Vader.
Son of Vader, yeah.
You should call him Lady. What would be the male Lady Vader? What would be the male version of Lady Vader?
I don't know. I was thinking about that the whole time.
Senor Vader.
I was honestly trying to think what is the if you were to go singularly worded, what is it? I can't think of it.
I don't know. Sir Vader. I don't know. And then
that Sir Vader's actually not. That's probably what it would be.
I guess.
But considering he isn't, he's the heir of Vader.
Yeah, because you can't call him Lord Vader because that just means he's Lord Vader.
Yeah. But Sir would imply that he is also just Vader.
Yeah.
So I guess Son of Vader is probably the closest.
Maybe he shouldn't have called Leia Lady Vader in the first place, and then he wouldn't run into this issue. And then the book wraps up with everyone dying. My notes here go sequentially. Sabaoth kills... Sabaoth wants Mara, but Mara kills Luuuuuuke. Mara kills Sabaoth. Rook kills Thrawn. Rook gets killed by guards, and Pelion retreats. That
sounds about right.
The book wraps up so damn fast.
It does. It is a nice, quick set of dominoes.
Yeah. How about that? Rook killing Thrawn for his for the enslavement of the Nogri. Pretty crazy.
Rook. Honestly, I was convinced he didn't know for a long time.
Yeah,
that Thrawn had him kept out of the loop enough.
Yeah,
but
this is a big iconic death in Legends. I don't think you knew about it at all.
No,
right?
no.
How did you think the whole Thrawn thing was going to wrap up?
I wasn't sure. I was honestly thinking, like, towards the end of the book, like, I was like, okay, we're in a trilogy setup.
Mm-hmm.
Thing has just died.
Sabaoth?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sabaoth has just died, so that threat's null and void, quite literally.
Yeah.
We're now back down to, like, 4 Force users again.
Yeah.
And there was Thrawn, the person who could still theoretically wipe out the New Republic.
Yeah.
I was not sure how that ended.
Yeah.
I was thinking, okay, maybe he lives for another book?
Yeah.
But then I remember, no, he's in the middle of a space battle.
Yeah, in the middle of a space battle, he goes down, he gets killed by Rook, and we do still have Captain Pelion out there. Captain Pelion is still out there. He's still living. He's still existing.
Still existing. Although I feel like by the end of the book, he's less sure of his own command than when he's than an heir.
Oh yeah, you kind of get the feeling throughout the whole trilogy that Pelion is just starting to care less and less about the ideals of the Empire. Like
Yeah.
I just think that's interesting. Like he his being like serving under Thrawn kind of leads him to continually question Thrawn's methods and as such question the Empire as a whole, because at this point Thrawn is the Empire.
Well, literally, he commands what is left.
Yeah.
But no, like, you're not wrong, like, because, like, the New Republic has set up a myriad of evidence that they're going to attack this one place, but they're actually going to attack another.
Yeah.
And Pelion keeps pointing out, well, we should go here. This is where the evidence points.
Yeah.
And Thrawn's like, yes. But what if no?
Yeah.
They're actually going to be at this place.
Yeah.
And Pelion's like, fine, we'll go there, because you're the leader.
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool. It's cool to see. And I forget, I'm pretty sure... Oh, man. Okay, so this is where my Legends knowledge gets a little scattered, because these are the only Legends novels that I remember, like, verbatim.
Fair
or
enough.
so not verbatim, but, like, had, like, a really good,
The
strong memory.
The best memory of, right.
I once started reading the Hand of Thrawn duology, Spectre of the Past, the first one of those, and I can't remember. I feel like Pelion's in that, but I genuinely can't remember.
It almost feels like he should be, but I don't know.
Yeah, but those come a little bit later. There are other Legends things that we should sequentially read before then. So,
Yeah.
But more on that later. My last note of the book is Luke and Mara, best friends. Best friends. I have a W there. And that's the end. It is nice. It is a great little note to end it on.
It ends specifically with Luke going, here's my old lightsaber. I want you to have it. She's like, why? He's like, just because?
Yeah. Oh, so good. So sequentially, the next thing we should do Legends-wise is the Jedi Academy trilogy. So
yeah, you told me this.
Your little comment about there only being 4 Jedi left or whatever. Actually, I guess there are only really 2 at this point. Or I guess Leia.
I said Force users. I didn't specify
yeah,
Jedi.
That's fair. Yeah, so like the next step to go in Legends is to start rebuilding the Jedi Order, and I think that starts with Mara. Mara is the implication by the end here is that Mara being a Force user, there's the potential for good there. And
Luke makes some comment about that.
Yeah,
like we can some line along the lines we can make a Jedi out of you yet or something.
Yeah, there's something. I think back on that sort of thesis for the character in Return of the Jedi, I am a Jedi like my father before me. It is that belief in Vader, is that belief in good that he sees in Mara there, I think.
He absolutely sees that in her.
Yeah. Oh god, Luke has daddy issues and you gotta love it. Oh man, that was the last command. Oh man, what a book.
It was a good book, a good trilogy.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I definitely understand where the love for like the original love, the love that carried Thrawn into new canon, comes from.
Yeah. The fact that, oddly enough, Thrawn has had more longevity in the new canon than he ever did in Legends is also so fascinating.
That's true.
Yeah. Obviously he exists in other things outside of this in Legends, but it's all either prequel stuff or the weird semi-inclusion he has in the Hand of Thrawn duology. So we'll talk about that more eventually.
Yeah, down the road.
Yeah. In the meantime, though, what are we talking about in the near-ish future on R2-BD? We have things planned. Ideally, our next episode, we are covering. Grab it off my shelf here. We are covering the comic miniseries Shattered Empire by Greg Rucka, which I'm very excited to talk about. It's part of that sort of like Journey to the Force Awakens stuff push they did in the early publishing of under Disney, and Disney and Marvel, I should say.
Disney, yeah.
But also there were like regular books that had the whole like Journey to the Force Awakens label on it. We kind of chose this back when we were still playing it out like as a larger episode, so it was kind of themed with like doing more like post Return of the Jedi Star Wars things.
Yeah.
With, Skeleton Crew and this, and now Shattered Empire coming up. So that'll ideally be our next episode. Otherwise, I think we talk about other things that we have planned coming up.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
We do want to cover Andor Season 1 before Season 2 comes out, and obviously when Season 2 is done releasing, we'll talk about Andor Season 2.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to talk about. Book-wise, I think next we want to do, you chose, what did you choose?
I chose The Living Force.
You chose The Living Force. And as such, I think comic-wise, to sort of go alongside that, we'll cover There Is No Fear from the early High Republic stuff. We'll do that as well, which I'm very excited to
talk about that.
That'll be a reread for us, which I'm very excited to revisit.
I'd say that early in Phase 1 of the High Republic, haven't been there in a long time.
Yeah. Well, we did Light of the Jedi. We covered that on R2-BD.
Oh, that's fair. That's true.
But that's kind of like, not all in that order, but that's kind of like, those are kind of the episodes we're looking at coming up in the nearish future, so be on the lookout for all those when they come out. As always, if you enjoyed this, be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment if you enjoyed us, suggest things. We're always looking for new Star Wars books and comics and things to talk about, so whatever you'd like to hear us talk about, just tell us. We will consider it. No, seriously, I keep a list of things that I just want to eventually cover, and there's so much.
Yeah, same here.
So, yeah. Also, our my link tree and Jacob's Blue Sky will be down in the description below. You can follow us wherever you want to follow us. And I think that about does it. So thank you all so much for watching. Until next time, this has been Joey Morgan.
Jacob.
Goodbye.